Angela was a single mother.
Life hadn't been kind to her.
Working 2 jobs, constantly judged by neighbors who whispered about her raising a child alone, and often overlooked by the very people who were supposed to help.
But despite it all, she poured every ounce of love into her boy that day. She'd saved every spare dollar to throw him a small but meaningful celebration. A handful of kids from the neighborhood.
A chocolate cake with happy birthday, David written in blue icing.
And a rented clown who juggled for laughs. But amid the smiles, something unthinkable happened. One moment, David was there swinging at a piñata with all the determination of a 6-year-old.
The next moment, he was gone. At first, Angela thought maybe he'd wandered inside the house for water. Then maybe he was hiding, playing a game.
She called his name.
Nothing. She checked every room, the bathroom, the basement, the garage.
Her voice cracked as she shouted louder, her heart hammering in her chest. David, baby, where are you? Parents joined in the search.
The clown stopped juggling.
Kids began to cry.
What started as confusion turned into sheer panic. Minutes stretched into hours. The police were called.
Officers arrived, notebooks in hand. But their eyes told Angela something she would never forget. Doubt. They didn't treat it like an emergency.
They asked questions that felt like accusations.
Was your son unhappy?
Did he ever run away before?
Are you sure he didn't wander off? As if a 6-year-old boy could just vanish without a trace. Angela begged them to look harder, to search the woods behind the house, to check the roads.
But instead of urgency, she got indifference, and slowly, painfully.
The birthday party turned into a nightmare that never ended. Days became weeks.
Weeks became months, and still no sign of David. Angela was treated like a suspect, then like a fool. People whispered that maybe she had imagined things, or worse, that she was somehow responsible.
Her pain was met with cruelty, yet she never gave up.
She kept David's room just as he left it, his little toy cars lined up on the windowsill, his superhero blanket folded neatly on his bed. She prayed every night, clutching his photograph, whispering into the dark, "Come back to me, baby,
please." But as the years passed,
hope felt like sand slipping through her fingers. Then,
decades later, when Angela was in her 50s, something happened that changed everything. It was a rainy afternoon. Angela had gone up to the attic to clear out old boxes.
Dust coated everything, and the air smelled of wood and time. She was sorting through old clothes and books when she found it. A small, taped-up cardboard box shoved into the far corner. She didn't recognize it at first. The handwriting on the label made her knees buckle. It was David's. Her hands trembled as she pulled it closer. The tape was yellowed, brittle. She tore it open, and inside she found objects that froze her blood. There were photographs. A pair of tiny shoes she recognized immediately. A faded birthday card with "To my best buddy, David," written in messy child's scrawl. But it was the last item that made her heart stop. A letter, folded neatly,
as though someone had placed it there intentionally.
On the front, in blocky letters, it read, "For MOM." Angela's tears blurred the ink as she unfolded it. The letter was short, shaky, written in a child's hand. "Mummy, I'm scared.
He says I can't come home.
Please find me." Angela dropped the paper as though it had burned her. The words echoed in her skull. He says I can't come home. Who was he? For decades, Angela had been dismissed, ridiculed, abandoned by the very system meant to protect her.
But now, finally, she had something concrete.
Proof that David hadn't just vanished.
Someone had taken him. She rushed to the police with the box, her heart pounding with both fear and renewed hope. But when the detective on duty glanced at the letter, he sighed. "Mrs. Brooks, this could just be a cruel prank. You really want to stir all this up again after so many years?"
Angela felt her chest tighten. Again, the same doubt, the same disbelief, but this time,
she wasn't the powerless single mother they once ignored. She had connections now, people who believed her.
A new detective who had just joined the force, a young black officer who'd grown up hearing whispers about David's case, and he promised her something the others never did. He said, "Mrs. Brooks, I'm going to find out what really happened to your son." The investigation reopened. The letter was tested, the box examined.
Forensics revealed fingerprints on the photograph's fingerprints that matched someone in the police system, not a stranger.
Not a drifter, someone who had been there all along. A neighbor. Angela's mind reeled as she remembered the birthday party, the neighbors who came and went,
offering smiles and casseroles while quietly judging her. One in particular,
who had volunteered to help clean up that day. Could it be? Her stomach churned as she realized the truth might be closer and darker than she had ever imagined. Angela stood outside the neighbor's old, weathered house, the box clutched in her hands. The officer at her side whispered, "We just need confirmation before we go in." But if what we think is true, this changes everything. Her pulse thundered in her ears. Decades of pain, loss, and unanswered prayers had brought her to this doorstep. She raised her hand to knock, and the door creaked open. Inside, a voice raspy, familiar, terrifying called out, "I knew one day you'd come looking." Angela froze. Angela's knees nearly buckled when she heard the voice from inside the house. "I knew one day you'd come looking." It had been decades since David's disappearance. Decades since her world collapsed. And yet the tone of that voice, it was unchanged. Calm, cold, too familiar. Standing beside her, Detective Marcus Lee, the young black officer who had reopened the case, tensed, his hand hovering near his holster. Angela swallowed hard. "Where is my son?" The figure stepped into the dim light. It was Mr. Harlan, the neighbor who had lived just 2 doors down all those years ago. Now older, with grey streaking through his hair and deep lines across his face, but still carrying that same unsettling stare. He smiled. "Angela," he said smoothly. "Still clinging to old ghosts?" Angela's voice trembled, but did not break. "I found the box. I found his letter." She held it up as proof, her hands shaking. For the first time, Harlan's smile faltered. His eyes darted to the box, then back to her. Detective Lee stepped forward. "Mr. Harlan, we'd like to ask you a few questions regarding the disappearance of David Brooks. We have evidence that ties you to this case." But instead of shock or denial, Harlan laughed. A low, chilling laugh that made Angela's skin crawl. "You really think you're the first person to accuse me? Police combed through my house years ago. Found nothing." Because there was nothing. Angela's chest tightened. His calmness was too practiced, too confident. "Then explain this," she snapped, holding up the letter. For just a flicker of a second, his eyes betrayed him. Fear, recognition. Then he whispered, "You shouldn't have found that." The cracks began to show. Detective Lee's tone hardened. "Mr. Harlan, did you take David from that birthday party?" Harlan leaned against the doorframe, crossing his arms like a man with nothing to lose. "Do you know what it's like, officer, to watch a mother neglect her child? Running around with different men, never home, never giving that boy the structure he needed. Someone had to step in." Angela gasped. "You're lying. I worked 2 jobs for him. Everything I did was for David." But Harlan's words hung in the air like poison. He was trying to twist the narrative, just like the police said years ago. Blame the mother. Erase the truth. Angela's tears burned with fury. The evidence surfaced. Detective Lee pressed harder. "Mr. Harlan, forensic tests linked your fingerprints to items in that box. How do you explain that?" Harlan's face twitched. His confidence wavered. Then, almost defiantly, he said, "You can't prove anything. That boy's been gone for decades. And you'll never find him now." Angela's heart sank at his words, but then, in the silence that followed, she realized something. He hadn't denied it. Not once. Suddenly, the door behind Harlan creaked open wider. Angela's breath caught in her throat. There, in the shadows, was a photograph hanging crooked on the wall. A child's face. A familiar face. David. Older, but unmistakable. Angela's knees gave out, and Detective Lee caught her before she collapsed. "You kept him," she whispered, horror and hope battling in her chest. "You kept my baby." Harlan's mask finally cracked. His calmness shattered into rage. "You don't understand. He was mine. I gave him the life you couldn't." Angela screamed, lunging forward, but Detective Lee restrained her. "Angela, wait. We need to do this right." But her eyes were locked on that photograph. Proof. After all these years. Proof. The escaped Detective Lee reached for his radio, calling for backup. But before he could finish, Harlan slammed the door shut with startling force, locking it from the inside. Angela pounded on the door, sobbing. "Where is he? Where's my son?" From inside, Harlan's voice echoed, taunting. "You'll never see him again. Not now. Not after this." Moments later, the sound of footsteps thundered through the house. A back door slammed. Detective Lee rushed around the side, but by the time he reached the backyard, Harlan was gone. Disappeared into the night. The chilling discovery. Angela collapsed onto the porch, clutching the box to her chest. Her body shook with grief and fury. Detective Lee returned moments later, holding something in his hands. A journal. It had been left behind, half hidden near the door. He opened it. The handwriting inside was unmistakable. David's, and the first line sent a shiver down Angela's spine.
He said if I ever tried to leave, no one would believe me. He said MOM gave me away. Angela's sobs tore through the quiet night.
Detective Lee closed the journal with trembling hands.
His face was pale. Angela, he said slowly, this isn't just about Harlan. There's someone else involved. Someone who helped cover this up. Angela's eyes widened, her tears halting.
What do you mean? But before he could answer, his phone buzzed with an urgent call. He listened, his expression turning grim. Then he looked at Angela and said the words that made her blood run cold. They just found something.
Buried in his backyard.
Angela's heart stopped. What did they find? Please subscribe for part 2.